How do you see Bitcoin reaching that sort of mass adoption or people really taking it seriously on a mainstream level?
So they are, and it's happening. And it's happening as the market cap, the value of Bitcoin goes up. It forces the banks, the pension plans, the sovereign wealth funds, the family offices, the asset management firms to get involved. So you might not know, but you will end up be participating in this through different mechanisms. It may eventually be in your pension plan, in your 401k. You just don't know it yet. So the financialization of Bitcoin and the acceptance is happening. It doesn't require every individual to understand it. Like, you and I don't know how Google works, but we use it. We don't need to understand this stuff. You don't understand all the companies that you may invest in your 401k. Maybe you've got an index tracker. You have no idea what companies are in it. Can you name the 500 companies in the S&P? No. But if you just accept that there is a whole new investment world that has massive potential upside, but is still quite risky. Well, certainly if you're younger, you might take that bet. Because what are you going to do? Try and buy record expensive housing? Well, people are now because they've managed to borrow money, but it's hard. So, and people are moving out of cities, so you can find cheaper stuff. So it's the opportunity. And we've seen that last year, 2020, the millennials got financialized because they got given stimulus checks and they thought, well, this $1,200 is worth nothing to me. What's it going to do? And I'm at home, so I'm going to trade it. And it just happened like magic.
Yeah.
People opened brokerage accounts in their millions and started learning how to trade. Bizarrely enough, they started with options, which is not where people normally trade, but that's what Robinhood have made easy for people. Yeah. And people learned a bit about making and losing money and investing. And that whole process drove people in. And it's also driven people into crypto. Because I said a while ago, they needed everybody who was under the age of kind of 35, under the age of 40, needed something to participate in with their savings. Where were they going to make their retirement money from? And here it is. It's on a plate, the biggest thing ever. And the crypto market currently is only worth $2 trillion, which is a lot. But that global equity market's 100 trillion. The global bond market's 100 and something trillion. So it could still go up 50 or 100 times from here over the next 10 years to catch up. It's also the fastest growing in market cap asset in all recorded history, the largest price appreciation of any asset class in all recorded history. I mean, if you want an opportunity and you don't mind taking a bit of risk, this is the biggest one you're ever going to be given. It's a whole new system being built in front of your eyes.
I know it's so exciting that you say that. And I know Pomp, who I also interviewed for this podcast, he's always writing the high percentage of appreciation that, 500% up. And it's just incredible because you think about I remember in the 90s, my mom was working at a bank teller. The interest rate on your savings account was 8%. And here we are entering a territory where we might get negative interest rates, right? And then you put your money in Bitcoin and yes, it's a volatile appreciating asset, but it could go, the sky's the limit, right?
Well, on average, it's gained 213% a year since inception. I mean, literally nothing has ever looked like this. And why is that? Because it's built on network effects. The more people that come into this network of money, the more use cases that get created, the more valuable that network becomes. So it goes up in an exponential way. And that is something unique because financial markets have never dealt with exponentiality except in some equities like Facebook and Google and some of these others that were network effects themselves. They were built on networks. We haven't really dealt with this before. And so we're dealing with a whole system going through a network effect, mass adoption at the same time. It's extraordinary.
So how would you describe the future of the crypto space to someone who really knows nothing about crypto?
Everything that has a value, and even things you don't understand have a value, are going to be exchanged digitally without necessarily a bank being in the middle. So that may be how you pay for things on the internet, how you earn money, how you lend out your time for work, how you earn a living, how you sell some of the rights that you have, your intellectual property rights, or even maybe you're a student and maybe you want to give up some share of your future earnings to pay off your university debts. Or there's so many things that are going to be changed by this. We've seen it with things like NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, which is now people's ability to create authenticity in digital art that can get traded. Now, it's not actually just about art. It's about music rights. It's about communities. It's about even charitable communities. There's all sorts of things that's going to find ways of monetizing. And so people are actually going to get liberated in new ways. They'll monetize, and most people won't even realize it's cryptocurrency. They'll just get used to having different payment systems that all work together with the same wallet. That, if you operate in the Real Vision system, it's the Real Vision token. And if you operate in this system, it's that. And when you save your money, it's in Bitcoin. And they'll all be just part of our lives. And people get used to it. It takes a while, but over time, people just get used to this new system.
So can we talk a little bit about central bank digital currencies? Because do you think that there will be this unification of Western central banks under a single currency? And how would that affect Bitcoin?
Central bank digital currencies are the central banks acknowledging that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have changed the world. And it's a much better way of running a currency system, payment system, infrastructure system, settlement system, custody system. So they're saying, fine, let's do this for the money system. And they kind of learned this over this pandemic. It's very hard to get money into people's hands directly. So if we've got interest rates at zero, we need to kind of figure out a way of having monetary policy that works. Hence, central bank digital currencies that will work in the modern digital era. Where they go, who knows? What they use them for, who knows? How they can use them to maybe incentivize you to become a saver and me to become a spender, they can do that. They can individualize it because smart contracts, Ethereum smart contracts, they exist. We can change the terms on different people. Okay, that's super interesting for monetary policy and economic behavior. But there again, there's another big problem in the world. The problem we haven't talked about in all of this big monster of issues is the US dollar. The US is 25% of the global economy, yet 88% of all transactions on Earth. So there aren't enough dollars for a system that needs dollars. So it creates breakages. And those breakages are when emerging market currencies collapse. We've just seen it with Turkey. We're seeing it with Brazil currently. We've seen it all over the world, Argentina. The world doesn't need this dollar. And the dollar tends to be cyclical. And when it goes up and down, it affects all the price of commodities because they're all priced in dollars. So if you're South African or Brazilian or Australian or Indonesian and the price of the dollar goes up, the price of all commodities falls and you get less money. And you've probably got dollar debts because you're earning dollars. It's a mess for everybody. Nobody wants it. We want a stable world currency. Mm-hmm. And Facebook came along and said, we want to start a global stable coin called Libra. It's going to be a basket of all the world's currencies. So it's going to be really stable. So anybody around the world, whether you're Nigerian, whether you're Indian or English or American, can use it, and it's not going to move around a lot. It should be the perfect payment platform for everything. And the central banks said, whoa, stop there a second. You're going to take over the entire world's currency. And so they decided that they would not allow Facebook to do that, that they could do a US dollar stablecoin and maybe a euro one and maybe a yen or whatever. And that if anybody was to create this basket, it would be the central banks themselves. Now, it's not been agreed that it will happen, but the IMF have talked about it. They call it kind of a new Bretton Woods moment where we build out a new financial architecture for the world. One of them is this globalization of taxes that Janet Yellen's been talking about, where we don't have tax arbitrage between countries. So people like Google can't seek the cheapest tax structure by moving abroad. But the other thing they talked about is, should countries get together and create a world currency, which has been floated around by the IMF in the past. And digital currencies make it much easier to do. So there's a potential. Now, does that get rid of Bitcoin? No, it's just a more digital world. But if they give it certain attributes, like if you want to be a member of that basket, you're only allowed to print 2% new money each year, then this thing looks much more like Bitcoin than it does the current fiat system. And so maybe that would alleviate the need to have as much need to use Bitcoin urgently, that urgent need that everyone feels right now. It would change. So I think that could be interesting. Obviously, governments always cheat, central banks always cheat, it will never last. But it might be something. So if there's something to slow the adoption of Bitcoin, it will be the central banks getting their acts sorted out and not debasing their own currencies.